Today's program is brought to you by Trace Vistas Recovery, located in San Juan Capistrano, California, an evidence-based and holistic healing sanctuary run by Dr. Daniel Hedrick. He's the same gentleman who treated me back in 2007. Check him out at tracevistasrecovery.com or give him a call at toll-free 844-900-0444. Trace Vistas employs the most dedicated and respected in the field of addiction recovery. Their team of proven individuals tailors treatments to suit each individual's addiction rehabilitation needs, and their complete staff is ready to help you get back on track to a full and enjoyable life. Trace Vistas Recovery, healing one family at a time. Welcome to the Todd Z-Cast, everybody. My name is Todd Zalkins. Recorded live here in Long Beach, California, where we talk about a little bit of everything, a little bit of recovery, a little bit of this, that, and the other. Some things relevant and highly irrelevant. We're here to share with you what's really going on. Oh, man. Do we have a show for you guys today? What a freaking awesome show we got planned for you guys today. You know, I'm just going to come out and say it. Today we've got the legendary Randy Bradbury here.
Hello.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. I'm happy to be here, and this is really cool to be back in the, LBC with my old friends, and it just feels comfortable, like home, like an old living room.
For all of you who don't know out there who are listening, Randy is the bass player for Pennywise, and he's a Long Beach guy through and through, and I knew him as a kid. In fact, he beat me up when I was a little kid several times, and we're going to talk a little bit about
when
that
I
in a
could
minute.
catch you. You were faster. I wanted to beat you up. I don't think I really got in all the good licks I wanted to.
You probably owe me some.
Yeah, I don't think I can do it anymore.
So thankful that you took time out of your busy schedule. You got a family life, and you just took the kids to school, didn't you?
I did.
How old are your kids?
I got an 18-year-old daughter, a 16-year-old son, and then a 7-year-old daughter and a 6-year-old son.
Full boat.
So it's crazy. I could see the checkered flags in the distance. It was like I was almost across the finish line. And then we had 2 more. So it's really they're the best thing in the world. Of course, anyone who has kids knows that, but they kind of suck the life out of you. But in a good way.
Yeah, I know that you're a good dad, man, and
yeah.
We're all just really, really happy that you took time out of your day to be
cool.
here. And you, before we got started, you're like, "What are we going to talk about?" It's like, we're going to talk about you. We're going to talk about Randy, and just we're going to cover a bunch of stuff. And so let's just jump right in.
Sure.
You're
it's my favorite topic.
It is, isn't it?
Ask my wife.
And it's sure as hell my favorite topic today. And you've always meant a lot to me, and since I've known you as a kid, you hung out with my brother a lot when you guys were young. You're 3.5 years older than I am. You grew up here in Long Beach.
Yep. In Naples, hanging out with Eric Zoomer, playing basketball in the alley. Went to junior high, elementary school, I think, together also. And unless he went to Naples, I went to Lowell.
Okay, yeah,
anyway,
he went to Naples, but a quick childhood memory when we used to play football and baseball in the Rose Bowl. You may or may not remember this, and we'll jump back to some questions I want to bounce off.
You mean the Ivy Bowl?
Did I say the Rose Bowl?
Yeah.
God, am I out of my mind? Too many drugs, everybody. Yeah, the Ivy Bowl, this little place in Naples where us kids would play football and baseball and run around. You were so freaking epic that every now and then, when do you recall, tell me if you remember this, you would, when we would see like an older lady going to go shopping across the bridge, you would run up and start singing to her.
Yeah, I would do anything that anyone fucking suggested. I would go do.
Randy would run up this ivy hillside and start he would just start singing. Freaking, we would be howling on the grass, going, "There's Randy singing to this poor," nothing offensive. It was just wonderful, and you're probably at the time 12 or 11, 13 years old, and I'm like 9 or 10 going, "This guy's absolutely perfect," and just crazy, and I loved it.
Awesome.
So great childhood memory.
Yeah, no, I really had no shame. I mean, I think my kids got a little bit of that too, my son especially. But I don't know what it was. I didn't get embarrassed very easy. So it was like the little things would embarrass me more than the big things, you know? So just like,
What's an example of that?
Going, like if you go walking into a room where you don't know anybody, you know, and it's like, you know, there's that uncomfortableness of like, you know, I don't know anyone. What are you going to talk about? So usually that uneasiness, I just go, screw that. I'm going to tackle it head on. And I just jump out and will maybe be a little bit over the top, you know, to compensate, or I don't know what it is, but yeah, that would be kind of example. So being a kid, it's like, you know, I don't even think I can explain it. I would just do crazy shit and think it was funny. I don't know, for a laugh, I guess.
I so admired that. I so admired that. And you surfed a lot as a kid,
Mm-hmm.
and you surfed with a bunch of guys that lived in Long Beach, right?
Mm-hmm.
And did that influence you quite a bit?
Oh yeah, that was before, you know, as growing up as a kid, like I was into baseball and football sports. I wanted to do, you know, when you're a kid, I had dreams that I could do all these things. I mean, I guess I always have, because otherwise I wouldn't have made it anywhere, I suppose. But I would have dreams that I could be a professional baseball player or a professional football player, and that's what I wanted to do. And then I got into surfing, moved to Belmont Shore, Naples, around 10 years old, and got exposed to surfing. There was this chick, Loretta Martinez, and this was like 6th grade, and she liked this guy named John Knight, who's like the local surfer guy. So I thought, well, I better become a surfer. And I started listening to the Beach Boys, and I put like surfing pictures all over my room. But that was just my introduction. And I fell in love with surfing. And it's funny, you got the Mark Richards surfboard right there, and Mark Richards and Sean Thompson were the guys. And I really thought, I mean, I was so dedicated to surfing. I really thought I just wanted to be a professional surfer. I was probably out of our group of friends that went every single day. I was probably the worst one. I mean, I didn't start surfing well until I started going again when I was like 27. But it didn't matter. It was still everything to me. And part of that, what you're saying, like part of like surfing, there's a rebelliousness to it. It's kind of being outside of it's not doing societal norms. You know, you're going to be a surfer. You're going to, you know, you can't go to school. You can't get a normal job because you got to surf every day. So I think that kind of like was the introduction to, you know, going against the grain, I suppose. Yeah. So I think that's what you're getting at, and that's very true.
Now speaking of going against the grain, at what point, what was your first musical influence before punk rock came into play? What kind of things were you listening to?
I mean, I remember being a kid. It's funny. I was talking to someone last night, and I loved, like, I remember getting a radio when I don't know how old I was, maybe 6, 7 years old. And I would just listen to KHJ. That was the station then. And we heard, we were talking about The Streak and Crocodile Rock. So I would just listen to anything. I remember Gladys Knight would be on KHJ, and just anything that was popular probably in 1973, you know, that was my first real, you know, kind of when I got saturated into music.
So you're like 9 or 10.
Maybe a little earlier, 7. I don't know. I was born in 1964, so I don't know. Okay. I think I was around 7 years old when I got that radio. And so I always just loved music, just loved it. But then the first single I bought, I think, was Saturday Night by the Bay City Rollers. It was either that or Dream On by Aerosmith. And I remember buying Wings, the Wings record, Wings at the Speed of Sound. So it didn't matter. I didn't know what was cool. And I didn't care what was cool. I just liked music. And then in junior high, I got into, you know, then all the kids are at school and they got older brothers and sisters. And so there's kids that are listening to cool music and they're like, oh, Ted Nugent, Led Zeppelin, all that stuff. So, and Foghat. So it's just a progression of always trying to research and find out what was cooler or better. And, you know, so I think my very first favorite band was Ted Nugent, you know, Double Live Gonzo or something I had. And then for some reason, I always liked Black Sabbath. I got exposed to Black Sabbath somehow, and I always liked that. Even when I got punk rock and turned punk rock and got rid of all my records, I would secretly listen to Sabbath, you know. But
So you still kept Sabbath had to stay somewhere.
dude, it had to.
Had to get rid of you kicked Zeppelin and Aerosmith and all that other stuff, but Sabbath had to stay there.
Sabbath had to stay. I mean, you think about it, Sabbath is actually probably one of, like before there was a name for it, they were probably the first or one of the first punk rock bands. I mean, it was called rock and roll back then because there was a lot of rebellious thing, but Sabbath they sound punk rock even, so. And
often they're referred to as the grandfathers of heavy metal, them or Zeppelin, but they could sure as hell be called punk, couldn't they?
Yeah. And I think Zeppelin was more like of a manufactured band,
Yeah.
They were great. They took what that was and perfected it, I think. But to what it could be in like 1972 or 3 or whenever. But Sabbath was just like they were just doing their own thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, Zeppelin wasn't metal.
No.
Now, at what point did you make that shift and like, oh my God, punk rock is holy shit? When did you have that moment?
I remember exactly. It was me and Mitch Hammer. Remember Mitch?
Of course I do.
Okay. We went to a swap meet with his parents, and I think it was the same day we were going out to like pick out their Christmas tree or something. But it was in November. I remember it was in November of 1979. So we go to the swap meet. Now, I had already liked I listened to the radio like the Knack we're on, and the band called The Shoes and The Cars. So there was this new wave type of thing happening. I remember that was in 9th grade, and so I was kind of like thought that might be punk or whatever, but still like hardcore punk, like CPO Sharky punk rock, like where they had the mohawks and stuff. That was laughable to me at that time, being a surfer in 9th grade. So I remember and so then we got, almost a year later, 10th grade, I go to the swap meet with Mitch Hammer, and we found this like record collector, and it was Bootleg Records, and I loved Elvis Costello. So I was going to get an Elvis Costello record, and then we saw a Devo one, and me and Mitch were like, yeah, let's get this Devo record and we'll bring it home and laugh at it, and it's going to be hilarious and it's going to suck. And so we go back to his house and we put on the Devo record, and I don't know what songs were on it, but we were listening. We were like, listen to this. And then we were both sitting there going like, whoa, this is good. It was literally 2 minutes after we put on that first Devo record that I just go, fuck it, I'm going to be punk rock. And then I would go over there every day and we'd listen to that same Devo record. I didn't have any of my own albums. And I remember Tim Bradbury, he won't remember this, but I remember him standing downstairs and yelling up at the window like, you punkers or punk sucks or something. I mean, a week later he decided to be a punker, but yeah, that was it.
How classic that I can, as I'm watching you recite this story.
Yeah.
It's literally like it happened yesterday.
Yeah. It was like that. It was instant.
And so after that day, obviously you became more and more familiar with much more hardcore acts and bands. So from there, what did you just lock into?
Well, I like when I get into stuff, I just dive in full bore. Like Mud always bags on me, like, it's just a joke. Like I'll just dive into stuff for, 2 years and then just saturate myself and learn everything I can about it. So after Devo, I got turned on to that. I started walking down to Jeremiah McCain's Records on 2nd Street and started buying more and more records. And I just wanted to be, if I was going to be punk, I wanted to be more punk. So I just I would buy records that looked cool or that I thought would be good. And I would talk to the guy who worked there and ask him about stuff. And I'd buy like English imports. And I just started getting more exposed quickly to, like other bands like, Black Flag, Los Angeles bands and stuff like that.
Was stuff like Discharge or GBH stuff, were you into anything like that?
Well, I remember buying the first Discharge single because I would, at that point, then I'd go to Zed's at least once a week and buy everything that was new, everything that I could get that was new. And Discharge was one of them. And it was cool. It was like very, very thrash and very hardcore, and I thought it was cool, but but there was also something about those bands that they were a little like, I also thought that I was an expert really soon too. So anything that came after I decided I was an expert in punk rock was kind of late, you know?
Yeah.
And, so I didn't give them a whole lot of credit, you know? So the things that I got turned on to earlier, like the Dead Kennedys and X and Black Flag and the Circle Jerks and the Adolescents, especially, and TSOL. And then, you know, some English bands like, 999 and Generation X, the Buzzcocks even. There was a lot of, you know, back then anything was punk. Punk was a lot of different things. There was a Cure record that I got, I think, well, now I know because I've looked it up. It had I know the name. It was Three Imaginary Boys. And the only thing I knew it as before, it was, had a refrigerator, an old refrigerator and a lamp on the cover and a vacuum. But, you know, and I'd even listen to that. Later on, the Cure sucked and I didn't like it, but there was no difference back then. So the Buzzcocks, there was a lot of poppier stuff too.
We had plenty to pull from in our own backyard.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my next question is, when did you start to play bass guitar?
I think I started, there was an acoustic guitar laying around our house. And I remember I used to go watch Red Alert, you know, with Mud and Trey Pangborn and John Flint. And those were, you know, we were all best friends. We'd all hang out every day anyway. So I would be over at Mud's house and they'd be rehearsing and I would go all the time. And so something, you know, I'd watch them play and I really wanted to be a part of it. I tried to like I tried to convince them to let me sing, which never caught on at all. I don't even think it was it was even a consideration of any of theirs. But then, but I wanted to hang out, I wanted to be part of it. And around that time, Trey showed me like a 2-finger bar chord. And I go, because to me, guitar was magic. It was something I can't understand. What is this magic that goes on? And I didn't understand it. And then when he showed me that, I go, that's it? And I went home that day and grabbed that acoustic guitar and started playing with those 2-finger chords and making up songs and trying to learn songs. And from that moment, I was playing 8 hours a day on that acoustic guitar. And about 6 months later, I was still trying to, how can I wedge my way into some type of band situation? I wanted to be in a band. And I thought, even though I really liked bass, like I would listen to my stereo with the bass turned all the way up and the treble all the way down and listen to Geezer Butler, you know, and Black Sabbath. But about 6 months after I learned those first bar chords, I was like, I'm going to get a bass because that'll be easier and I could get in a band with a bass. And I went to Whitaker Music and put a down payment on a bass. So I think that was like 1981 when I got a bass and started jamming in a band with these guys, Desi Valdez and Bill Lakoff. Bill Lakoff was playing drums. And so we'd go over to Bill's house every day after school and play. We didn't have a singer, but we were jamming. So, yeah, 81.
So similar to the way that you were jumping into the music that you absolutely were passionate about, this was another passion. You went all in.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
You were just, I'm digging this, and I'm going to go for it.
Yeah, that was the one that stuck. And then something about playing bass or playing music, there was, I don't know how many bands there were in Long Beach at the time, but there was probably like 5 bands, you know, like Targeted a Man, The Crude,
Secret
Hate, Falling Idols. These were the parties that were going on. And I loved all those bands, but somewhere I was able to at least get to the point where I was better or believe that I was better. I was out of 5 bass players, I might have been, you know, the best one. I don't know. I kind of thought. So that made me think I was good and that I had some kind of like real ability to do that. And it was like, you know, so bass and music became my thing. And so that's the one thing that I dove in head first, and I just stayed there, you know, and kept playing and playing, and even to this day.
We know that your career has certainly progressed over the years, and you've been doing this for a long freaking time. And the Falling Idols wasn't too far away from there, okay? And a band that has influenced all of us, even to this day. And we still all love the music, and we still monkey around with it and play your songs, and the silly bands that I play in with Greg and with Trey sometimes. And to go back to that time when the Falling Idols, when you got with those guys. What did that mean to you then to play with those guys and the songs you played? Because you guys fucking rocked. It fucking rocked.
Dude, that was honestly, it was like a dream come true at the time, because those were my friends, and it's like I wanted to be involved. We used to go surfing together, and so everything, we did so much together, and I wanted to be a part of that. And not just that I want to be a part of it, but I mean, I had that cassette tapes. I would record practices that they would, I had tapes of band practices with no singing just over at Mud's house. So I knew all their songs, and I was like, I guess I was probably their biggest fan, and so I would listen, and when I had my bass, I would play along with their cassette. And so I knew all the songs, and at some point, it was right after high school, then Trey was going to go off to college, and so they needed someone, and at that time he was playing bass, so they needed someone to play bass. So it was like they had a gig at Recreation Park in that little stage thing there.
Yeah.
Like a week later or 2 weeks later, and I just go, I know the song, everyone, it was just kind of like, we'll just have Randy play, Randy's going to be in the band. So when we went and played that gig, and so now I'm in Falling Idols, and it really, that was like the ultimate goal at the time. It felt great. So
I always felt that you and Trey had really good chemistry together, and obviously David Quackenbush is, I think, one of the best frontmen around. Mm-hmm. He's a great singer. Yeah. He writes great lyrics. Yeah. And as a unit, all you guys just played really well together.
Yeah. There was a lot of, since we were buddies, I don't know. It was like we would go to practice, we'd call it practice, but really it was hanging out. So that's, we would just go to, we'd make the rounds. We'd go to everyone's house and eat, and, whatever. We'd go to my house and eat and like listen to records, or and we'd be at Trey's house and eat, and then sit around his kitchen and talk shit, and then we'd go to Mud's house and eat, and then go jam in the room. But what we'd do is we'd just go in the room, put on our instruments, and start playing. We wouldn't even talk. We wouldn't say like, hey, go to G, go to D. There was never any talking. We would go in there and start jamming on whatever. Someone would just kind of start leading the way, and after about 45 minutes, we'd have a new song or two new songs. Like, it was unspoken. There was a chemistry that was like, and it was really, and Mud had great timing. Like, we all just kind of had this unspoken thing. It was really natural.
It seemed really unforced.
Yeah.
And even though I was super young, and I was absolutely in love with you guys, and I had to often get kicked out of your practice sessions just because I was a little jack off.
You're a little asshole, but it was great.
And I'm glad that you said that, because it's the truth, and it's because I idolized you guys.
It was awesome.
I truly did, and but I do recall.
I mean, you weren't asshole like we didn't like you.
I was just a pain in the ass.
It's kind of a pain in the ass sometimes, but not too many times. When you add it up over the years, it was just enough times to make a mark in my memory. But it was probably only like 2 or 3 times that I remember one time I chased you around. I remember this, like, we were in the alley. You're gonna remember. This is before all that. I think I was in 8th grade or something. We're playing basketball behind your house, and you said something, about my parents or something, and it was just a little joke or something. And I said, hey, don't talk about my folks. And you go, folks. And you turn that into a whole thing. And I'm like, that's it. I'm going to fucking kill you. And I tried to get you, dude, and I could not catch you.
You're always tall and scary. I'm glad I was reasonably fast. But Knowing what I know now, I wish I was calmer and more cool because I just.
You were good.
Anyway,
you were epic. Like you look at you.
I just appreciate what you guys left us with that music, and around that time, Randy, the Long Beach scene was pretty intense and stuff, and there was a household, if you want to call it, the Crude and the Secret Hate. There was some ugly shit going on around there, right?
Yeah.
And can you talk a little bit about that? About how shit was getting dark in Long Beach.
Yeah.
Right. Can you comment a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. The whole thing about. Okay, so we were pretty young. I was pretty young when I was exposed to punk rock, but I can't really explain what an influence it had on me. That was it. This punk rock is it. Music, punk rock, playing music. That's all that matters. From the moment I was exposed to it. And so, of course, diving in, I'm going to be as punk as I can be, and I'm going to be as much I'm dedicated to music as I can be. So part of the whole punk rock thing was a kind of nihilistic, self-destructive, all destructive, anarchist, fucking not going along with the societal norms and things like that. So I was like, well, that works with me because I don't want to accept responsibility anyways. I'm still a kid. And so there was a whole lot of fuck it. And the more fuck it you had and the more asshole behavior you did and the more destructive you were, that was cool points for punk rock. So I think there was just a common, all at the same time, kind of influence, punk rock influence among a certain age group, all over, like in all the punk rock scenes. It was like for the most part, a destructive, like tear everything down, fuck it, don't go to college, don't be a part of the thing, don't get a 9-to-5 job, just, break shit and be. So that led to everything that I looked at being a young, impressionable kid, wanting to be a musician, all the fucking cool, best musicians or the idols, the ones that I chose to pick, they were all like loserish. I mean, great musicians, but loserish drug addicts or alcoholics and shit like that. So that became like a goal also.
And that's what I want to kind of touch on. When I say the dark part is that, certain narcotics entered the area.
Yeah.
Okay. It was no longer just whiffing a little bit of blow. It wasn't just popping a couple pills down there. Heroin was everywhere. Right. In the Long Beach, in the area, and a lot of good musicians were becoming owned by the drug, and you saw it all over, didn't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And it got ugly, and it stayed ugly for a while, right?
Yeah. I mean, that was, I look at it now. So at the time, that was a goal too. It's like, if that was on the path to achieving cool, I mean, I thought I didn't know I was going to like it so much. And as a matter of fact, I didn't really do it until I remember I got in an accident on the traffic circle with Mark Schultz and Kirk Tillman. And and Kirk got really hurt. His legs got messed up. And, but then he was good. And then Mark barely got hurt. And I got a punctured lung, like cracked ribs, punctured lung, blah, blah, blah. So I remember going, they drove me up the hill to community hospital and gave me, I don't know, morphine, some opiate. And the next thing I know, I go from being in total pain to saying like, thank you. Oh, thank you. Like for everything. And it felt fucking great. And that was when I just put 2 and 2 together and I go, I fucking love this shit. This is heaven. It not only was it was a goal on the path to cool, it was like the best thing I had ever felt. So I remember it's somewhere along the line, I was going to do heroin and do fucking coke. Meth really wasn't a plan, but that got entered into the occasion. But there was a whole lot of drug addiction going on and drug use and all that stuff up through the mid 80s. And we can talk more about that if you want, but I will say looking back on that, like not having that be something the way I was raised. Like I wasn't raised in a household where that was going to be part of the plan. You know, that was kind of a deviation. But I'll tell you, I mean, the experience that I gained from going there is like something that it's invaluable. Like you just learn so much about human nature. Like when you're involved in drug addiction at the very fucking bottom of the barrel, at the very least, you see how nobody has morals. People are fucked. It turns into everyone's animal instinct becomes the prior. So you learn a lot about real life scenarios. It's like everything's not, you know, shag carpet and polyester fucking pantsuits and, you know, it's like, and like TV shows and, you know, commercials. It's like, there's a reality. People, everything's based on human nature, and when times are good and the cotton's high, everyone's going to be nice to each other and everyone's going to be pleasant. But when the shit hits the fan, you get a couple hurricanes to trash an area, and there's only a few loaves of bread left. Everyone's going to start killing each other. So there was a lot of realism that I got that I don't think I would have ever gotten from that. So, you know, that whole period, whatever it was, and it was really low, and I'm very fortunate to have got out of that alive, which I didn't even plan on. I didn't really care at the time. I was like, fuck this, I'm going to do everything, and I'm on a mission, and I'm going to fucking have fun. And what I really wanted to happen was that one of those missions would just kill me, and then I would never have to grow up and become a responsible adult, you know?
So I want, and I definitely don't want to focus on just darkness, because the beautiful thing is, Randy, is that you left all that stuff behind. Yeah. We're simply covering a time period.
Oh, for sure. I don't mind talking about it.
I'm just stoked that you've just got the courage to say, yeah, it was a phase. It happened. And that's no longer a part of your life. And that was a part of this culture. It was just a weird seeing it around, you know, it was, and it got black. It got black around here, and we saw people change. We've
lost people, you know. Obviously, we lost
a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know, and you see them change first off on the insides, and then you start to see the behavioral and the physical changes on the outsides. Right. And so you get yourself out of that bad spot, and things change for you from a career perspective.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of things change. So tell the listeners what happens to Randy.
Okay, so what happened was, I'm fucking raging, and I'm doing, you know, look, part of what I was doing at the time was I wanted to do crazy stuff and have fun, and I didn't want to say no to almost anything, and I thought, you know, anything might kill me, but also at the same time, I wanted to live long enough to get high again. I didn't want to, you know, end up in jail, because then you can't get high the next day, blah, 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 things like that. So I didn't want to do anything stupid. I wanted to go out, you know, in something that was exciting and good. And so that just kept going on and on and on. And then I remember I turned 23, right? So Sid died when he was 21. Okay, everyone cool died young, you know, like, so I kind of had past my expiration date, and I remember it was really bad. And then it wasn't fun anymore. There was nothing. I was homeless. I didn't, you know, it was past the point of being fun at all. And so I remember I had an opportunity to, like, you know, quit doing, you know, basically get clean. And I remember thinking at 23, I was like, it looks like my plan didn't work. Looks like I'm going to be around here for a while, so I'm going to give it a shot. Now I'm going to give it a shot, and I'm going to do everything that I'm going to try to do the best I can do. So so at 23, and I remember, so I got sober at the time. I went to rehab, and I went to this recovery home in San Pedro, and I lived in Pedro for almost a year there. And I remember sitting on the couch watching MTV at the recovery home, and there was some, I don't know what band I saw, and I was like, wow, they made it. And I'm 23, I just turned 23, and I go, fuck, I wonder why we didn't make it. I wonder why I didn't make it. And then, right, like just like right after that, I was like, wait, what am I saying? I'm still a kid, you know, I'm 23. I got my whole life ahead of me. And it was that moment I just go, fuck it. I'm going to do everything I can to make my living playing music, whether it's no money or a lot of money, but I want to pay my rent playing music. I want to buy my food from music. And so I just made I set a goal right then to, you know, and so I never said no to gigs. I played, I was at one point I was in 5 bands at a time, and I would just,
no kidding.
Yeah. I was in, well, whatever. I was in a ton of bands.
You were working.
And I would just look for opportunities and then keep going. But it was always stuff that I liked, you know, like I wouldn't, you know, I would say no to stuff that I thought was lame, but I had my schedules full, and I'd practice all the time, and just practice. And then, you know, just kept going and got this gig, that gig, this gig, that gig. And it kind of like,
let me ask you something. So you're working your butt off and staying sober, and you're young and you're charging, kind of like you're going all in with this too, man. You're going to make music, you're living, and you're just going for it. And was there any type of concern about, God, can I, you know, I can still rock. I'm just playing bass. Did you feel like, you know, I can still kill it, right?
At that time?
Yeah.
Oh, I actually, yeah, that was my prime right there. I didn't even, I had that moment where I was like, oh, why didn't we do that? But I realized that, and around when I was 23, I actually had a thought in my head that I have some choices to make right now. Like I really can dedicate myself to anything, you know, if, I felt like that, you know, I felt like I need to pick something that I want to do, because I was really focused on not being a fucking pile of shit anymore. It didn't work. Being a pile of shit didn't kill me. So now I got to try something new. So, so at that time I knew I believed that I could rock and fucking that I could be as good as anyone. I mean, I think I maybe am overly confident, but it didn't hurt me, you know, so.
Now, I got to ask, I don't know what this popped into my head yesterday when I was thinking about you. How old were you when that, and I love that song by the Divinyls.
Oh, yeah.
I Touch Myself?
Yeah.
How old were you when that video was shot?
I think I was around 26.
So you're a few years sober, and who got a hold of you for that?
Well,
you had long hair.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's funny because in Falling Idols, you know, like post-punk or whatever, it's like, you know, and I was saying very shortly after I got into punk, I was already an expert. So I was already growing my hair out because it's like, oh, I'm already so punk. I don't have to prove it, you know, I don't have to have short hair. So I remember in Falling Idols, I remember like thinking it was, I thought it was cool, like when my hair grew out and I was like, you get all sweaty and you're shaking your hair around. There's just something about that. I mean, maybe it's old rock and roll, you know, stuff, but I've always like thought that was cool. So then when I got in, so after, you know, one of the first opportunities I got was to play in Tender Fury with, you know, and I was like, that's Jack Grisham from TSOL. It's fucking like one of my idols. So I got in Tender Fury and he was like kind of focused on not being punk or like TSOL. He's kind of focused on being a little bit like what was happening in LA at the time, like glam or whatever. And I was like, you know, and I was just going along. I was like, I'm fucking gonna, whatever you want to do, however you want to work it, I'm in, you know? So I like, was like, oh, I can grow out my hair and shake it around. So I had grown my hair out. And so the way I got that thing with the Divinyls was we Hunt Sales from he played he played with Iggy Pop and he did Lust for Life, you know, it's his drum beat and stuff. He was going to produce our record when I got in Tender Fury. We were going to work on a record, and so he was going to produce it. And eventually he ended up, Dino was the drummer then, but something happened. Dino wasn't in the band, so Hunt Sales got in Tender Fury. So the next thing I know, I'm playing with this icon drummer, Hunt Sales, you know, from who played with Iggy Pop, and he's fucking David Bowie. He was in Tin Machine at the time. So Hunt so I'm like, fuck yeah, it's so rad. And then I remember we played the first gig we played. I feel something hitting me in the legs because I'm out front, you know, singing, whoa, you know, backing vocals and shit. And I turn around and it's these drumsticks, and Hunt's throwing drumsticks at me because he's pissed off because I'm not locking in with him on drums. So I went, you know, so then we worked on that. So we played together for like a year, and I worked on playing with Hunt, and he schooled me on how to play bass to the drums. Like I learned, like I sit there and would watch him play, and I learned so much about what I was doing. Yeah, just watching the beater hit the drum head. And so I learned so much about what I was supposed to be doing. So me and Hunt, like, and then he got like kind to me, and he'd give me compliments, and he'd say I was a good player and things like that. So that led up to about a year later, he got a call from the Divinyls, and they were like, we need a bass player to go on tour, to be in the video and everything. So then Hunt gave them my number. I got a phone call. I went up to the Maison Hotel up in Beverly Hills and met them, and the next day I was doing the video with them, and it was makeup and all this stuff.
Yeah.
The chick was putting the makeup girl was putting makeup. So I'm like, what, 25 or 26? She's putting makeup on my face. She goes, wow, you have really nice skin, which no one's ever said that to me before, right? So I go, thanks. And I go, well, who else have you put makeup on? Well, she goes, the last one was Keith Richards. So I'm like, fuck, what kind of compliment is that? But yes, we did that. And then the next day they said, hey, do you want to come? Do you want to try out? Do you want to go on tour with us? Can you come down? So I went to Cole rehearsal. I jammed with them, and they asked me to go to Australia with them. But at the time I was doing another record with Jack, Tender Fury record, where I happened to have written almost all the music on there. It was me and Jack writing all the songs. And that for me was like iconic, to be involved in writing an album. So I knew that the Divinyls gig was something I shouldn't say no to, and I wasn't gonna say no, but I didn't really want to do it. And besides, who knew? No one knew. That was just something, that song was nothing. I just did the video, the day before. So they were asking me a bunch of questions about the tour, like, would you share a room and stuff like that. So I pretty much made it so it wasn't really going to be beneficial for them to fly me over to Australia and fucking buy me my own room every night and stuff like that. So I didn't end up getting the gig.
So you backed off.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you jammed. I remember seeing you in Tender Fury down in San Diego Harbor. I'd actually tried getting sober, stopping on my own for a couple of months. And you guys had all that hair, and you guys had like 38 hot chicks in a bar that held about 43 people.
Yeah. What was that? The Casbah? Probably at the Casbah.
I mean, the bar was tiny.
Right.
I swear it didn't hold, but maybe it was 75 people. But
right.
Everyone in there was a hot chick, and I'm like a fat, sweaty guy who had no solution to recovery. And, you guys were sober, and I was like, oh my God. And you guys sounded really good, and I didn't look good, and I was like tripping out. Yeah. Very ugly and out of place. Anyway, but okay. So Tender Fury, you're jamming with them for a bit. Now I'm curious, when did Pennywise come into the picture? You've been with them for over 20 years.
Yeah.
Aren't I right on that?
Yeah, it's been since 95. Yeah. But then before that, well, I'll tell you how it happened. So in Tender Fury, Fletcher's brother, Christian, used to come to see Tender Fury play. Now this is back in 88, 89, 90. And I think it went through to 91. And so because he loved TSOL. And Christian was kind of like a Paul McFadden guy. Like, he was gnarly. Like, he would go there and you'd be like, why are 5 people getting thrown around the fucking slam, the dance floor right now? And it'd be Christian. And so he reminds me a lot like Paul. And Christian's no longer with us, so rest in peace. And so anyways, and Paul is, and that's good. But anyways, so Fletcher's brother used to go, and Christian would always tell me, dude, you got to come check out my brother's band. You got to check out, my brother's band. And I remember looking at Christian, I'd be like, your brother? I'd be like, I don't want to go see. I don't even know what that band would be like. I don't think I'd be into it. But he ended up giving a record to Dan Root. And so much like the first day I got turned on to punk rock, Dan Root goes, hey, I got Christian's brother's band's record. Let's just put it on and, make fun of it or whatever, or laugh at it. And the first note hits and they start singing and there's all these harmonies. And I was really into Bad Religion at the time too. And I was like, and Dan's looking at me and he's like, oh, he's got this smirk on his face. And I'm like, fuck, this is awesome. Fuck. I left his house and went and bought the CD right away. And I listened to it every day. And I was totally, totally into it. And so then things happen. So time goes by. I'm listening to the CD every day. And I still had not met any of those guys. And I hadn't even seen Christian since then. But things that were happening in that band where Jim, the singer, left to go to college. Or he did something. He got a job. I don't know what the heck he did, but he was leaving and they were going to go to Europe. And so they needed a singer for Europe. So I get a phone call from Christian saying, hey, do you have Dave Quackenbush's number? My brother's band, they want to take him to Europe and have him sing. So I kind of facilitated that a little bit to, get the number. And I went with Dave. I think I drove up there to go meet Fletcher for the first time. So Dave meets Fletcher and I meet him. And the first thing I said, I go, I fucking love your band. I want to be in your band. And he goes, well, we already got a bass player, So but I remember saying that. So they went to Europe with Dave. And then when they came back, and that was like a month, about a month later, they come home and they go, you know what? They go, Dave's going to go back to the Vandals. And then Jason, the bass player at the time, he was like a founder of the band, Pennywise, and he wrote so much of the first record, and he was really a true talent and like a true, like probably a huge reason why they even were good in the first place. But he was going to sing, and so he asked me, he goes, hey, I'm going to sing in the band now. Do you want to play bass? And I go, fuck yeah. So that was my, introduction to being in Pennywise. And that was in like 1992, I think. And I played with them for like a year. We did, shows here and there. And then we recorded their second record, Unknown Road. But then after we recorded it, Jim came back to the band and sang on it. So then I went back to doing what I was doing, and they kept going for a couple more years. And then in '95, then I got in the band again.
So did you play bass on the About Time album?
No, they recorded that after Unknown Road. After I had left, then they went and recorded. So then there was like 2 more years where they recorded About Time and toured on that. And then I got in the band. I got a phone call. I kept in touch with I'm skipping a lot of stuff, it's kind of. Yeah. But I got in touch with, I would stay in touch with Fletcher and those guys. And Jason was, unfortunately, he was having some troubles with, a lot of, drinking way too much. And they were having problems with that. So they would call me from time to time and go, hey, we might need you. We don't know if Jason might not show up or this or that. And so, yeah, eventually, I remember it was October 23rd, 1995. I remember I got the phone call, and they said, hey, we need you. Jason's gone home. He's going to get his shit together, and we need you out here on a flight to Florida tomorrow, as soon as possible. So that was when I flew out and started touring with them on the About Time record.
And you guys are pretty much, I look at it as a pretty tight little family.
Yeah.
You guys travel a lot. You play a lot of shows. On average, how many shows do you play a year?
Well, yeah, we're close. I mean, that many years. I mean, they're like brothers, and we can, we get along, we don't get along, stuff like that. You know, I don't, as far as like being on tour and how many shows we do, I would say it's anywhere from 70 to 110, you know, at the most. Sometimes there's been years when we only played like 30 or 40 shows. So, but that was back when we were selling records too.
When you have that type of downtime with you know, a wife and 4 kids, are you playing in other bands? Are you recording other bands? Like what type of stuff are you doing with that type of downtime?
Yeah, there's having 4 kids. There's a lot of, especially when they were all going to different schools. There's a lot of, you only get an hour in between, you know, pickups and drop-offs. So there's really a lot of not doing anything, like sitting on Facebook and saying retarded things, and it's just a lot of time wasting. You know, it's hard to really get involved in anything when you only have an hour. But over the years, the most thing I've probably done when I do have time is I have a little, you know, garage studio. I have a little, you know, room that I built in the garage, and I got just, you know, enough to, it's like I would say it's like the same as having a sketch pad, you know, and writing notes. So I'll go out there and write. I'll just write music and record it. And I have probably over the years written in some fashion, like 300 or 400 songs, you know,
really,
or riffs, you know, probably completed songs. I don't know, 100, but, you know, ones that I would say, you know, here's a finished song. So I've done a lot of writing. And that's really about it.
But you get to be a dad to these kids.
Oh, that's the best thing. I mean, you know, you start out with a lot of ideals. Like, I'm going to be this type of parent because, you know, for whatever reason, like my parents were like this, so I'm going to be like this. Or my parents were like this, and I want to keep being like that. You know, you just pick all kinds of ideals, and they last like, it's kind of like they say, like in war, like a military plan is only intact until first contact, you know? So it's so, you have kids and next thing you know, you're spending all your time just raising them, changing diapers, trying to make the right decisions. And it takes up a lot of time. So I am really very fortunate to be home a lot to do that. Mm-hmm. But, you know, also it can, you know, if your home time isn't like quality time, you know, it could also, you know, sometimes it's not so great. Sometimes, you know, you're just yelling at them or something, you know, to do this or do that, which I try not to do too much. I try to be productive with them, but, you know, it's just, if you put together 18 years of being a dad and you learn a lot about yourself. I think it takes 18 years for kids to become adults, because that's how many years it takes for parents to get it right, you know?
Yeah.
So I think, you know, so that has been my number one priority is to be a father, you know, and be his best father I can be. And so there's ups and downs in that too, you know?
Well, you've done a really good job, because I'm 50 and I'm still working on becoming an adult. So I'll let you know when I get there. You know, I skipped 2 things I want to cover with you really quick, and we'll get you out of here in a second. And that is, when it comes to influences on bass, I know for a fact that Jack Bruce is one of your heroes, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Now, from Cream. Now, along the way, though, who else has influenced you from the past? But who else? Is there anybody that you know these days who you find pretty killer on the instrument that you play? Can you name a few people?
Oh, well, I don't have a lot of influences anymore. I think those were the early days, like with Paul Gray from The Damned, and you know, Jack Bruce, of course, and Geezer Butler, and you know, guys like that. But I will say, you know, I recognize people's talents nowadays, and I never was jealous. I never used to be jealous of players and stuff like that. But even like guys like Scott Shiflett from Face to Face, I get a tinge of jealousy, like seeing how fucking amazing that guy is on. He's just, so I'll just say him, like that dude. He doesn't get the credit he deserves. And that guy is just an amazing all around. He played guitar, he played bass. He's just a fucking shredder. So I watch him, and he's got a good tone. It's like cool. Like there's some, if I'll say I find some similarities with the way we play bass, but not really, because he takes it to a completely different level. But if I was really, really good, I would think I would play kind of like him and make it sound like, kind of think we have a similar tone and stuff like that.
I think you're a fucking good bass player, just so you know.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Hey, at some point it was like, if I remember thinking like, I bought a Billy Sheehan instructional video. This was like 1989 or 1990, right? And I always wanted to be a shredder, and I was just thinking I want to be good, And I got this instructional video, and he's just like, and I go, oh, okay. Well, I'm never going to be the most shredder, so, and I go, and I don't think I can do that. So I remember thinking like, I better just learn how to write a song. And if I get any, and I'm good enough, because if I get any better, I'm going to have to play music I don't like. I'll have to play jazz and stuff. So at some point, I kind of just decided to perfect the level that I had, or try to perfect the level that I had reached.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's absolutely perfect. Okay, I want to close it out with this, and this is for people out there who might be struggling, or some of the kids out there listening when it comes to drugs and stuff. I want to bounce this off you. You're a dad, mm-hmm. and you've got a high school age, or even a little bit older. Mm-hmm. When I talk to high school kids, it's funny. I don't think I even really get through very well to high school kids. Would you agree with me that when it comes to speaking to kids, do you think it's more important that we start talking to kids that are more like, not even so much middle school, but we start talking to kids about drug awareness in elementary school?
Well,
what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'll tell you, I remember. Okay, I got a lot of thoughts on that. I'll just say my own personal experience. I think I remember being at Lowell Elementary School and going to the auditorium and seeing a video or some type of presentation on drugs. And it could have been junior high, but it may have been 6th grade. I don't know. But I remember when they were talking about what all these drugs did, the only thing I thought was like, wow, that sounds like fun. And then the other thing that stuck with me was that don't do it or you'll fuck up your brain or whatever. Like, this is your brain on drugs. So kind of that was bad for me, because I was going to do it anyways. And then once I did do it, I go, well, I've already fucked up anyways. I might as well go all in. So I think that there should be a more real, I think that everything needs to be realistic. I don't think things need to be over exaggerated. Yeah. I think people need to understand that most kids want to experiment. Mm-hmm. It's a part of growing up. I think it should be okay. That's not a bad thing. Do your thing. Be safe about it. Blah, blah, blah. It should just be more realistic. You're not going to fucking kill your brain cells. You don't kill brain cells. You don't kill brain cells, and brain cells do regenerate. Like, that's one of the things I wish I would have heard that.
But it's probably not good for us to say, hey, we want you kids to be sampling heroin. It's probably not good for us to be doing that.
No, not at all. But I think it's really a tough, it's kind of like, yeah, of course. I think that if you're just honest, well, we know that if you're not, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And if you're gonna experiment with drugs, you don't really have real goals in your life that are kind of that drugs are not a path to. Like, if you have goals, then you might experiment with these things, but your goals are more important. So you're going to continue on with your goals. But of course we know that if you get involved in drugs, you're going to fucking lose your life. It's not because the drugs are going to fucking wreck your brain. They just become more important than any goals that you have. So you take that drug path, which is just it's not a good road. So I would try to explain it like that.
That's a great point. So education is important, let's face it, but kids are going to make choices, and that's a great way to put it. We can't force anyone to do anything, can we?
No.
At the end of the day.
Right.
Randy, I cannot thank you enough for taking the time, man. You've educated a lot of us on your story, man, and taking us down a trip of memory lane. We got to finish up with one thing really quick on these emails. We got a couple emails that came in.
Oh, nice.
From a couple of listeners. And where are those emails? Are they right over here? Yeah. From a couple of listeners.
Really quick, I'm checking. Okay.
Yeah, you can check. Are you okay?
I didn't know if my kid was trying to get a ride home from school.
That's a hell of a lot more important than these emails. I'll tell you what.
No, I'm good. I got time.
Okay, man. Let's see here. We got John from Atlanta, Georgia. He sent this is a few days ago. He says, Dear Todd, I read your book, Dying for Triplicate, about a year ago. It made me laugh a bit, and I really related to your story. I've got about 9 months clean after using OxyContin for about 5 years. He says, I didn't sleep for 2 weeks, and I wanted to slit my wrists. I don't know how you went 44 fucking days without sleeping. Anyways, that story about the mashed potatoes still sticks in my brain like no other. And my mom is scared of you. Dude, did this really happen? Well, John, first off, thank you for your email, and congratulations on your 9 months of being clean and sober. Yes, that story about the mashed potatoes is true. I was at a Christmas party, and in 1989, no one had any cocaine, and I was drinking Crown Royal, and I said if no one packed my beak, I was going to stick my pipe in the mashed potatoes, and that's what I did. And they got upset at me, and they made me leave the party. So that was just what I had to do at the age of 20. So I'm sorry your mom is scared of me, but John, what's important is that you're clean and sober, and thank you so much for reading the book. Okay, next email.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's real pretty, isn't it?
Hey, you know what? Not sleeping for just 5 days will make you think that
I got one more email.
Yeah,
44 days was bad.
Yeah.
That was bad. Last email we got here. Linda from Long Island, New York. Dear Todd, I have been on prescription drugs for 9 years. And like you, it started with the back injury. I was in a car accident that started it all. I never abused alcohol or drugs before in my life. And at first I was taking it for the pain. And then I found myself just taking it. And the stuff basically now owns me. I saw your film at the festival recently here in Long Island. I've wanted to get off of this for at least the last 3 years, but I'm scared to death. The withdrawals are terrifying, and I've got 2 kids, and I'm barely hanging on to my marriage. I want help, but I'm scared to death. Linda, first off, thank you so much for having the courage to send us that email. And we got this message from this woman a couple of days ago, and we had already responded to some outreach people in Long Island to get her some help and coordinate some treatment efforts for her. She and this, by the way, is not her real name, obviously. And she's got some health insurance. So from what we understand, she is lining up some care for her in her neck of the woods. So Linda, thank you so much for having the courage to reach out to us. And we wish you nothing but the best with your recovery. And we hope that your family sticks by you. And we wish you a full and happy life. So that's it for us, everybody. And thank you all for listening. Randy Bradbury, such a pleasure to have you. Randy Bradbury from Pennywise, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You guys
Thanks
have a great week. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Randy. Okay. Today's show is also brought to you by Central Coast's finest surf shop, As High As I Am, in Morro Bay, California. Owned by hard-charging big wave rider Mike Jones. If you're in the Morro Bay area and need a board or just some key clothing, As High As I Am is a place to score it for all your surf-related needs. Check them out at 1140 Front Street, Morro Bay, California. Telephone number 805-771-0199. Today's program is also brought to you by Uncle Cece's Hot Sauce, the best hot sauce on the planet. And I kid you not, I'm a hot sauce nut. I put this stuff on everything from my Pop-Tarts to my pasta, steaks, chops, you name it. His original hot sauce, Front Porch Committee, is absolutely epic. Upside down hot sauce is twice as hot as that. He's got honey garlic sauce, Jamaican jerk, teriyaki, chipotle on Mexican food, forget it. And his smoked serrano is so good, I keep it by my bedside in case of emergencies. That's right, Uncle Cece's, it is that good. And the world's gonna know soon enough. Uncle Cece's, it's the best hot sauce on the planet. Go to Clint Uncle Cece Hogland, that's Hogland, on Facebook to privately order. He's a mom and pop guy, but not for long. Soon to be a household name, Uncle Cece's Hot Sauce. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to email us at podcast@toddzalkins.com. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.